listeners, welcome back to Central Coast Radio. Well, there is a brand new film out in cinemas right now called The Bank of Dave, and it is based on a true story, and we thought, you know what, let's actually get to the bottom of this film by getting the man on the phone who this film is all about. Dave Fishwick, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Now, Dave, you don't get to ask this question to very many people, but what does it feel like having a movie made about your life?
It's a very, very surreal experience. I mean, it was a couple of years ago, I got the first phone call from a guy called Piers Ashworth that's a Hollywood writer. He actually writes Mission Impossible for Tom Cruise. And he rung me up. He said, Dave, I want to make a movie, a sort of biopic about your life, he said. And I said, well, am I not supposed to be dead when you make a biopic? I said, I'm alive. He said, no, you don't have to be dead, he said, I've been talking to people and I want to make a real feel-good story in Britain, and I've been asking around, and he said, you're the man. He said, so can I come and see you? I said, get yourself to Burnley. And he did. He come from Hollywood to Burnley. And he come along and we discussed it, and that's how it all started. It was just so surreal.
And at that stage, we hear about so many movies not getting off the ground. When he first pitched the idea to you, did you think there's no way this will ever get off the ground? Or were you pretty confident from the start that this was a story that needed to be out there for people to hear?
Well, to be honest, he'd made a lot of big, big movies, so his reputation preceded him. And he'd made a lovely feel-good movie in the UK called Fisherman's Friends recently that ended up doing really, really well. And I just thought, this guy knows what he's doing. And then he started talking about who might play me, and he said, Dave, who would you like to play you? And I sort of said, well, you know, you work with Tom a lot, you know, perhaps Tom. and he laughed. He did what you just did then. And I said, well, would I look too much like him? I said, is that the problem? And he just laughed. But we ended up getting Rory, and Rory looks more like me than I do. He's such a lovely, lovely man. And I remember the first time I met him, he come up to my house and he'd done such a lot of research. I mean, he's a proper actor. He's got Olivia's, which is the awards for thespian actors, where they win for doing plays and West End shows. He's just a proper actor, and he'd absolutely researched me down to the ground, because when he knocked on the door at my house, I opened it and he said, Dave, meet Dave. And I thought, you'll do for me.
Now, I've known a few actors over the years who have had to play real-life people, and they said when they have those meetings with the people, they're looking for little things like, do they look a certain way when they speak, or their body language. Did you feel that he was doing that with you when he sat down to talk to you?
Well, I think he'd done such a lot of research that, and he had a body coach as well that was watching me, how I moved and how my hands moved and how my arms moved. And that didn't really come to fruition until I started watching him play me in different parts of the movie when he was filming it. Because even as he lifted his arm up, I thought, I do that, you know, and it's things that you don't even know you do. And he really did do a fantastic job. And one of the things is, because we were filming at my house, my real house, and we were filming in my garden and my kitchen and my front room, and, you know, all these big stars from all over the world, like Phoebe Denver, she'd just come off the set of Bridgerton, you know, with 400 million views around the world, Bridgerton, and she'd there off this $100 million set. She flew into Manchester and come across to Burnley on a Tuesday wet afternoon, and she's there in Burnley Market with me having fish and chips. And it was just a culture shock, I think, to some of them. But they come along to all the places that these things happened, and that was so important to me. So Rory were at my garage, and we were selling a bus at the time, and he's filming upstairs in my boardroom, and he come downstairs for a break, and I started talking to him. And then he went back upstairs and come down again 2 minutes later. He said, I'm going to have a minute. He said, because I've just been upstairs playing you. And he said, now, I've just heard you say something slightly different than what you normally do. And it's just knocked me off. So that's how bonkers it was that we were actually doing this thing for real in the real businesses.
Well, Dave, we should talk a little bit about why there is a film being made about you. You did an absolutely amazing thing by creating this community bank. Take us back to that time and tell us, why did you decide to create a community bank at that time?
Well, to take you back just a touch further first, I mean, I left school absolutely useless with no qualifications whatsoever, and I were a builder's labourer on a building site for $50 a week, and I went from builder's labourer to building the bank to Hollywood turning up. So if we move forward to sort of 2008, 2009, at that point, I'd built the largest supplier of minibus business in the country, in the UK. So we'd already really, really been working hard. But I used to fill the forms in for my customers and send them off to the banks. And the banks used to then provide the funding for the customer to be able to buy the bus. And the buses would be used for picking kids up from school in the morning, taking them home at night, doing stag do's, hen parties at weekends, taking people to the races. And then all of a sudden, 2009, the banks just stopped lending to me customers. And I'm thinking, have they done something wrong? Have they not paid a bill? Have they got a CCJ? Have they got to the point where maybe they've moved out and not told somebody? But you know what? They'd done nothing wrong. The banks just decided they weren't lending to real people anymore. So I thought, well, if I believe in these people, I know what they're buying, and if I really trust them, why don't I lend them the money? So I started lending them the money. They paid it me back. And I thought, this banking malarkey, it's not that difficult. And then I decided I could expand from there and start lending to other businesses as well. And that's what gave me the idea of building a community bank. And that's how I set off.
Awesome. Well, mate, you've done amazing things for Burnley and the people of Burnley. Well, how did they take the news that there was going to be a feature film shot there?
Oh, they were so excited because, it's a tough place, is Burnley, to live. There's some wonderful, wonderful people there, but it really is a town that maybe could have done with some luck, really, because there were a lot of mills in the town, because my father worked in one. There were a lot of mills in the town, and the mills shut down, and there weren't a great deal of employment after. So, when something exciting happens in Burnley, it's a big thing. And everybody took part, and everybody was part of it. And when the premiere was due, the premiere for the movie, normally you have a premiere for a big movie in Leicester Square. And a lot of people couldn't come to Leicester Square. They didn't have the money to come to Leicester Square. There were hundreds of people in Burnley that were extras in this movie that would have loved to have seen it. And I thought, well, why don't we bring Leicester Square to Burnley? So I said to the production company, the movie people, I said, look, I want to have the premiere in Burnley at the Burnley Cinema. And they thought I was bonkers at first. But it's what we did. It's the first ever in history movie to be premiered in Burnley, outside Leicester Square. And then it ended up being global news around the world because we got a local butcher to make some Bankerdave pies, some special pies. And then we got popcorn and we got a few pints of beer, and everybody come to the cinema, and we all had a really good time watching it. And I went in a bus and brought a load of people with me, and one of my bosses from work, and it was just a lot of fun. And I just think that that's what it's all about.
Hollywood is very weird when it comes to locations and things like that. I live here in Melbourne, and a lot of films are shot here because apparently we look like London and Los Angeles together. I don't know how that works. How important was that for you to actually have the film shot in Burnley, like you said, in your house, rather than on a Hollywood set or some set in London?
It was so important. And when I spoke to the production company at first, I said, if we're doing this, we do it for real. We do it in the businesses, in the garage, in the minibus place, in the house, in Burnley Centre, in Burnley Market, in Burnley pubs, in Leeds pubs, in the parts in London. We need to shoot them in London where we did it for real. And it was important that we shot the parts in the places where things happened. And people can see that. People know if you've done it in the right places. You can hire a studio, you can have a green screen, and you can shoot things from wherever you want these days. But it was important that Phoebe, came to Burnley Market. It was important that Hugh Bonneville come to the places where it happened, and Rory and Joel. And Peter and Paul Kay, should I say? You know, Paul Kay, another big name, and the movie's been nominated for 7 awards, including Feature Film of 2023 by the National Film Awards. And you know, movies like this are I think important to the film industry because they're made in real places about real things that happened. And they do embellish the movies. Always embellish things, and you know, Superman can't really fly, but there's lots of things about movies that are real, and I think it's important to have as much of the realism as possible in a movie.
Definitely. Do you think the film will also inspire people? We had a film here in Australia, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, called The Castle, and it was about one man standing up to the government to defend his house when they wanted to demolish his house and build an airport. And a lot of people in Australia become inspired by that. And we see people today when the government goes to them and says, we're going to bulldoze your house for something, and they go, no, I'm going to do a Dale Kerrigan, which is the character from The Castle. Do you think that your film will inspire people?
Well, I've read about The Castle, and I think it's a wonderful film. I think what I'd love to happen is, do you know what? I think the UK and Australia and New Zealand are closer than what we think, because we all speak the same language, we all think the similar sort of way, and I think we could join up and be like a community together, all of us, and we could really benefit from the help from each other that we could give. And if we could get to a point where anybody that watched this movie, they come out of the theatre and they think, do you know what? If Dave from Burnley with no qualifications, if he can do it, then anybody can. And if they walk out of that theatre and they think, well, you know, maybe I can get that pay rise, or maybe I can get that new job, or maybe I can go and see the boss about, you know, getting a better job. Maybe I could start a little business. Maybe I could start a little community finance operation. Or even bigger than that, if you wanted to think bigger than that, you know, you could... I'm a big believer in community buying. If you could get a community of people together, all that could buy a block of energy and split the discount through the benefit of buying in a block, split the discount between them all and all benefit, because energy prices are going through the roof, fuel prices are going up, cost of living's going up, and these energy companies are making millions and billions while people can't afford to turn the electric on. And I think it's just about all coming together as a group of people and trying to make a difference. So that would be wonderful if we can inspire people to just move forwards with whatever's on their mind.
Definitely. Well, I think the film certainly will. And Dave, I know we're right out of time, mate. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. And do you have any last words for our listeners out there?
I think the thing is I hope they really enjoy the movie, but have the courage to follow your dreams. Let me know how you go on.